Yo there guys, what is happening? Welcome back to another video here on the channel. Today I am giving you my Thorpe Park Fright Nights 2021 20 Years of Fear review. So there will be spoilers within this video, so if you don't want to hear spoilers about the zones and the mazes and the shows at this year's event, then please don't watch this video. Let's kick straight off. So there's 10 experiences at the event this year, and I've ranked them from 10 being, the weakest to number 1 being the best. So obviously, before we get started, this is my own opinions from when I went. I went on the exactly 1 week since the event started, so they've had a week to work with things. Obviously, as I say, these are my own opinions, and I do hope to go back down to the event before it ends, and then maybe some of these things on the list might change, might go up, might go down, and we'll talk about that nearer to the time. So there, we are now going to kick straight off with the first thing on the list, which is at number 10, which is the weakest thing at this year's Fright Nights. At number 10 on my list, at the bottom of the list, once again, for a second year, is the scare zone, the swarm invasion. Now, anyone who saw my review of Fright Nights last year will remember I wasn't a huge fan of the swarm invasion. I felt like it lacked atmosphere, and that they weren't using the space well enough. The swarm invasion, when it was announced to be coming back for 2021, I wasn't really happy that it was coming back. I wasn't really a fan of it in its first year, so with it coming back for the second year, I was under the impression of, if they don't change anything again, then this is just basically just using the swarm as an area. But in terms of improvements from last year, there's more theming around. The containment tent is there, a couple of props from Roots of Evil last year, which didn't return. I would have loved to see Roots of Evil return this year instead of Swarm Invasion, personally. The one thing about this area was that it lacked actors. It lacked actors. Now, whether it was because I walked through at a bad time, in terms of actors, there was only, I think, 2, maybe 3 actors. And just the area, it had a decent atmosphere, but it just lacked actors. And I'd heard some really good things about it this year. Just like last year, I had heard some really good things, and once again, I'm disappointed by it. So that's why I put Swarm Invasion at the bottom of the list this year, once again. At number 9 on my list is Amity High versus Thorpe High, not High School Sucks, sorry, Love Bites. I had some good expectations for this. I've never really been a huge fan of the Amity Terror at Amity High when it's been a scare zone, and I wasn't a fan of it. I've always liked the show down there, but I've just never liked the zone itself. It just felt like a one-trick pony. But this year, combining Thorpe High and Amity High together, it had the expectation to be really, really good. The show, the Flash Mob show, once again, is brilliant. Always the best thing about that area. There's some little bit more theming. Obviously, the Thorpe bus is there alongside the Amity High bus, and the lighting trusses and everything around it, as well as 2 big boards, one next to the Thorpe bus and one by the Amity bus, which are good photo opportunities. But this zone, it had a really big, it had a big cast. So, yeah, it didn't lack actors, but it did lack atmosphere in between the show. And it felt like the actors weren't doing a lot, just wandering around aimlessly. So, really, this zone slightly disappointed me because, I think, personally, I think it could have been amazing. It really could have been amazing. I feel like Thorpe versus Amity High, the name for the zone, I think could have worked better as a maze. I think this concept, personally, in my opinion, could have worked better as a maze, because then you could get to enter, physical Amity High as well as Thorpe High. But yeah, that's why I regarded it at the bottom of my list again this year. Next up on my list is the first of the 3 paid mazes, and the weakest maze, in my opinion, is of course Platform 15, End of the Line. Firstly, I will say straight away, I am so happy that platform is being retired after this year. And especially the run I had on it this year was not great. It was on the same sort of level as my run through on it last year. Now, let me just clarify. When I did Platform 15 this year, it was after dark, okay? So when it's supposed to be more intense. So the changes, in terms of the route, it's the same route as 2020. So we were basically expecting the same old thing, as we always do with platform. But there's a couple of things I'm not happy with. First of all, the pre-show script. The whole change of changing Creek Village's name to Screech Rye Village makes no sense to me. And I'm not a fan of that change. I do like some of the new theming elements and new audio bits. You know, I do like the story this year. It's personally one of my favorite years in terms of story, but I'm not happy with some of the changes they've made. In the first bit in the maze, in the village scene, it lacked actors once again. It lacked actors just like last year, because that area used to be amazing for actors, but it just feels very weak. Yeah. And then going up to the train, there were some good new bits of theming, like clothes hanging down and smoke, so that was really good. The train scene itself was the weakest I've seen that train scene. Normally, it's a really intense scene to start the second half of the maze, but this year it lacked scares, but the theming was all right. The fire effect was just, the fire effect might as well not have been there because it just was terrible. And then the walk up to the train, from the train up to the station this year is terrible. It is. It had some decent scares, but it felt very forced and not as great as last year. And then the finale bit. So the finale is sort of split into 2 segments. So the first one is the platform bit. That this year felt, I wasn't a fan of the script they were using. It just didn't make any sense to me, really. And then the platform walk on there. One of the things as well with the tour guides this year is it was hard to hear them outside this year. The tour guides were really hard to hear at times, especially in the finale as well. And then for the finale, you do walk in the tunnel. The second part of the finale is weird. Okay, so when you first enter that tunnel, there's a jump scare straight away, and it is good. So it sets up the finale. And the actual finale itself is basically the same as last year with strobes and smoke. And it's all right. It's not as intense as last year. So really, when Platform was announced to be coming back this year, I wasn't a fan. I really wasn't a fan of it after last year. And I feel like I don't think Platform should have come back this year. I think we should have just got a different maze altogether, or maybe just not a maze in that area at all. Yeah, that's why Platform 15 is that position on the list. Next up on my list is the roaming team from 2020, which returned for this year, the Crows. Now, obviously, the Crows are split into 2 things this year. You got the Crows of Morecambe Meadow, Scare Zone, and the roaming team. For the roaming team, it felt useless. There was a lack of scarecrows this year. The Crows themselves is a much smaller club. The roaming team are much smaller. In terms of them, they're basically using the same locations as last year. But the Crows this year, they weren't as good as this year. I feel like the original cast was better. And there was only like 5 crows roaming around the park. and some of the actors really weren't going for it. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the Crows this year. I loved them last year, but this year they're just nah. I feel a little bit let down with the roaming team anyway. The roaming team weren't great. They weren't using the crosses whatsoever, as far as I'm aware. So yeah, what a shame. Next up is a scare zone that I was really looking forward to this year, and that is, of course, Creek Freaks Unchained, which was located in Old Town. Now, Creek Freaks Unchained last year was absolutely mental. It was a really insane experience, and it did feel like Creek Freak Massacre, but outdoors. This year, I had high expectations for Creek Freaks Unchained as well as Massacre, but we will talk about Creek Freak Massacre later on. But Creek Freaks Unchained, really underwhelming this year. There weren't as many actors. That's one of the things with Creek Freaks Unchained, is that it did lack actors this year. It really did lack actors. And it didn't feel like Creek Freaks Unchained. It really, like, there was, you know, some of the stages around Old Town they were using. They just weren't using the honorary buckwheat one near the Uber Wheats farm. Some of the theming is all right, but I feel like they didn't go all the way with it this year. And I feel like Creek Freaks Unchained, really, I don't think it should have been on the lineup this year. Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed with Creek Freaks Unchained. Would I like to see Unchained return next year? No, I think I'd just like to see Massacre back there this year. Well, next year, I think I would just like to see Creek Freak Massacre in that area and Creek Freaks Unchained removed from the lineup. But that's just my opinion. Next up is the Crows of Morecambe Meadow. What can I say about this scare zone? This scare zone, I had high expectation for it, and it exceeded my expectation. It was absolutely brilliant. There weren't loads of actors in there. If you don't know where it is, it's down on the pathway between Sword Ride and the Cantina. That little area down there, I think it's called. This scare zone is absolutely brilliant. There's smoke, there's lighting, there's some amazing audio, and I got some really good scares. The actors in here are absolutely brilliant. Shout out to Connor. Also, just going back to Creek Freaks Unchained, shout out to Darcy and the cast there. Absolutely fucking brilliant. But in terms of the Crows of Morecambe Meadow, a wonderful cast in here, an absolutely brilliant cast. And this is the better Crows attraction. Next year, I would love to see the Crows of Morecambe Meadow return, maybe using the platform route. I would love to see the Crows on the platform route. That would be really cool. If not, bring Morecambe Meadow back, but maybe extend it. Maybe use the old Roots of Evil area for the Crows of Morecambe Meadow. That's the thing. With the Crows of Morecambe Meadow, when it was announced, I was originally expecting this to be where Roots of Evil was. But considering the location it's in, they've done really well to disguise Saw Alive. Like, they did a really good job. And I'd love to see the Crows of Morecambe Meadow return next year. Next up is Birthday Bash. Now, Birthday Bash, I wasn't expecting a lot from this show. I didn't know what to expect. It's sort of a show and scare zone hybrid. And boy, was I impressed. The cast in this are absolutely amazing. Big shout out to James, who's in Creek Freaks Unchained last year. You may remember him as Lucas Buckwheat. This is just amazing this year. Birthday Bash is absolutely amazing. Definitely go check out the show. I feel like the show is underwhelming this year. Well, underappreciated. The show is absolutely brilliant. Some dark humor in it, some songs, very brilliant vocal performances in that. But yeah, Birthday Bash, definitely go check it out. It's absolutely brilliant. This Birthday Bash has replaced Festival Arena for this year, and definitely a worthy replacement. And I'm so happy that Birthday Bash is on the lineup, and I would love to see it return in 2022. Next up on my list is one of the better mazes at the event this year. Is, of course, Creek Freak Massacre. The Sawmill is finally reopened, and boy, did it feel good to get back in there. So first of all, credit to the cast in here. Absolutely amazing cast. The cast that was in there this year were very reminiscent of the original 2019 Creek Freak Massacre cast. Some of them were perfecting. Some of the actors in here were basically doing the same as the 2019 cast, but even more intense. Like, some of these actors were mental in there. I would admit there are spaces in this maze where it lacked actors, but the atmosphere was crazy in terms of changes. A new pre-show script, and the pre-show is a lot shorter this year. You get split up basically straight away instead of it dragging on a bit this year. Good thing as well with the pre-show is that they've actually given the actors microphones, which is good, so you can actually hear them. And then, you know, the rest of the maze, you don't get split up as much this year in Creek Freak Massacre. You only really get split up right at the start and in the Strode maze as before, but it didn't feel like as a split up maze this year. One of the biggest changes this year is the blade room scene. The blade room this year, the giant blade thing that was there, that's gone. Don't know why they removed it. Maybe it's just not working. It wasn't always working during 2019's run, and they replaced it with the body still there, but now with a chopped off foot, and there's a chainsaw in that bit just before the wood guide scene, which means there's no chainsaw in the wood guide, which is a shame, but the chainsaw actors in there are really, really good. In terms of the rest of the scene, the yellow strobes, I don't remember it being that stroby last year. The rest of it there, once again, little spots, lacked actors. And then the strobe maze. The strobe maze this year wasn't as intense. You didn't get split up. Again, it's a reoccurring thing of you didn't get split up as much. But the finale, okay, so the finale this year, it wasn't amazing. It wasn't as good as it had previously been. Like, the finale, it's still the chainsaw chase out, but it just felt really forced this year, and it didn't feel as like, oh, really disorientating. But it's, like I say, there's room for improvement. Is it as intense as Creek Freak Massacre in 2019? Not quite, but it's close. It's close. Yeah, once again, shout out to the cast. And there's an air cannon then after you come out the ramp anyway, which is pretty cool. I like that. But yeah, Creek Freak Massacre, definitely one of the better mazes at this year's event. Next up is the final maze at the event, and personally my favorite maze at the event this year is the new one, Trailers, which is in the Jungle Escape building. Trailers is absolutely amazing. One of the best mazes Thorpe has ever done. The facade is good. I wish they'd got rid of a little bit more of the jungle theming in the queue line, because it felt quite weird, but yeah. The theming inside this maze is brilliant. They really utilized the space a lot better than I was expecting. The scares in here, the scares are the most intense scares I've ever had in a maze. Definitely slightly more intense than Creek Freak Massacre, but only just a little bit. I was leading the group in this maze, and oh my god, the amount of times I was basically bouncing back into people was crazy. Like, the scenes in there, loads of good references. One of my favorite rooms in there is the big top room, Bozo's play zone. Absolutely love that. Got some really good scares in there as well, so that was a lot of fun. The one thing I don't really like about Trailers is the finale. I'm not a huge fan of the finale. It feels forced. It feels like a forced run out. And like I say, I'm not a fan of the finale. Everything else about the maze is brilliant. And I feel like this is one of the most adaptable mazes that Thorpe has done. Whereas with Platform and Creek Freak, you can't really change loads. With this, you could definitely take scenes out and change scenes. And I definitely think in 2022, this is going to come back with some new films. But yeah, if you're going to pay £10 for any of the mazes, Creek Freak and Trailers is definitely the ones to pay for. Finally, my number one thing at Fright Nights 2021 is Legacy, a fire and light display. I had pretty good expectations for this. I didn't know what to expect, but oh my god, was this is the best thing I've seen at Thorpe Park entertainment wise. The references in the show is amazing, and on the day that I was there, it was the first public day of Legacy as well. I went to the second show of Legacy, the 8 o'clock show. It's on 3 times a night, every night, 7, 8, and 9. Obviously, the first show apparently it wasn't fully ready, but the second show, some of the sequences changed. There's some really good references in there. There's references to the Asylum, the Freezer, Saw Alive, Big Top, Blair Witch, and Cabin in the Woods. Basically, some of the biggest mazes are somehow referenced in this show, whether that's through audio track. The actual show audio is amazing. It is. It's absolutely amazing. The lighting as well was absolutely amazing. There's Creek Freak. There's a Creek Freak segment in there, which actually features the same music that's in Creepy Cave's Resurgence ending at Chesington. So that felt quite nice to know that. The effects in there, there's smoke cannons, there's fire effects, really good. And I would love to see Legacy come back next year as well. I would love to see Legacy just return. And I think the thing for me as well, what felt amazing was, for me personally, was that during the Big Top segment, it was weird to think back that in 2015, the Big Top was exactly where Legacy was, and having the new theme tune playing, it was amazing. Really good. Definitely go check out Legacy at this year's event. But guys, that is the end of this video. Definitely go to Fright Nights this year. Obviously, you don't have to listen to my opinions, but that's my opinion on the event this year. Definitely go check out Legacy, one of the best things at the event this year. One of the best things to come to Fright Nights in the last few years, alongside trailers and Creek Freak. But anyway, thank you very much for watching this video, guys. If you're new around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, as I've got a couple more scare season videos coming out over the next few weeks, including a trip to Chesington World of Adventures Resort for Halloween. Go check out Creepy Cave's Resurgence, as well as all the other things they've got at the event this year, including roaming actors and basically a scare zone, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I've been Nasher. This has been another video on Nasher Vlogs. Stay safe, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.